Everything can change in a literal matter of seconds. I mean, think about it. You spend your entire life building a legacy. You bleed for a franchise. You hoist the Lombardi trophy. You demand and you receive the exact kind of generational wealth that alters the trajectory of your family forever. But the National Football League, it is an incredibly tough, unforgiving business. And when the league decides your time is up, your market value doesn't just take a little dip. No, it plummets. Overnight. A legendary career built over thousands and thousands of grueling snaps can just evaporate the exact moment a front office stops seeing you as a savior and starts seeing you as a liability.
So, how do legends actually bow out of the NFL? We all want the fairy tale ending, right? But the reality of aging out of this league is a cold, calculated, and often deeply humbling process. We're talking about the absolute smallest details of physical decline dictating your future. A fraction of a second lost on a deep ball, a knee that simply won't bend the way it did 5 years ago. And suddenly, those massive multi-million-dollar contracts, the ones that felt absolutely guaranteed for a lifetime, they just vanish. They are replaced by this heavy, hard silence. The phones stop ringing with offers of franchise control, and instead they start ringing with impossible decisions. Today, we're exploring two defining icons of our generation, faced with the exact same brutal reality of football mortality, who chose two profoundly different paths.
But before we unpack the massive scale of these legendary decisions, welcome to NFL Nexus. If you enjoy these deep dives, make sure to like this explainer, drop a comment below with your thoughts on these two superstars, and absolutely consider becoming a channel member today. We are obsessed with pulling back the curtain on the business of football, and it's your support as a member that keeps these in-depth explainers coming. All right, let's get into the shadows of the offseason.
Case Study 1, the calculator. Okay, let's dive into this. We begin with a man who looked at the writing on the wall, and instead of just fighting it blindly, he analyzed it. A man who calculated his escape route with the absolute precision of a game-winning 2-minute drill. We are going to break down Russell Wilson's incredibly calculated and honestly, arguably genius business decision following a truly shocking fall from grace. Because to understand his exit, you really have to understand the freefall. Just look at Russell Wilson's 2025 season. He started out as the quarterback for the New York Giants. The hope, the entire assumption, was that a fierce competitor like Wilson, a 10-time Pro Bowler, a Super Bowl champion, a Walter Payton Man of the Year, would claw his way back to success. But the turnaround just wasn't there. And he wasn't just benched. That happens to veterans all the time. He was completely demoted to the third-string quarterback position. This wasn't just some minor adjustment on a depth chart. This completely tanked his market value overnight. Being relegated to a third stringer totally rewrites the narrative. It sends a blaring signal to all 31 other general managers in the league that the magic is officially gone. And just like that, Wilson was shoved into a highly unpredictable, unforgiving free agency market.
To truly grasp the unbelievable scale of his current reality, we have to rewind a bit and look at the expectations. $350 million. According to arbitration documents, during his intense negotiations with the Denver Broncos, this was Wilson's reported ask. He literally demanded a 7-year, fully guaranteed contract worth $350 million. He wanted those unprecedented Deshaun Watson-level guarantees. He viewed himself as the ultimate, totally irreplaceable franchise cornerstone. That was the staggering scale of his pride and his deeply perceived market value just a very short time ago. But the Broncos executives, they had leverage, and they definitely used it. They didn't give him the $350. They gave him $245 million, a massive 5-year extension in Denver. And I want to emphasize this with a very clear point. $245 million is still an absolute mountain of money. It is the kind of mega contract reserved strictly for the elite 1% of the NFL. It cemented his status, at that exact time, as one of the most highly valued human beings in professional sports. That was the absolute peak. That was the summit, right before the cliff. And here is the bottom of that cliff, $4 million. After his brutal demotion in New York, the Jets needed a veteran backup. Wilson actually visited their facility. He even told the New York Post the meeting was great. But the reality of the actual offer was a massive reality check. Reporting projected the Jets deal at less than half of the $10.5 million he earned with the Giants in 2025, a projected $4 to $5 million. I mean, let that shocking gap in numbers linger for a second. From asking for $350 million to being offered for a player of Wilson's historical caliber, that kind of financial gap carries a very particular, very painful kind of sting.
Now, what's really interesting about this dynamic is the sheer irony of the economics. It is absolutely fascinating. Just look at this financial inversion. The Jets traded for Geno Smith from the Raiders. Geno is playing the 2026 season, on a restructured deal that guarantees him $18.5 million. Mostly absorbed by the Raiders, sure, but that is his established value. Geno Smith, the exact man Russell Wilson once outranked and permanently replaced on the Seattle Seahawks depth chart all those years ago, is now the $18.5 million starter. And Wilson? The Jets were offering him a tiny fraction of that, the veteran's scrap minimum. He would literally be holding a clipboard for the guy who used to hold a clipboard for him. This tells the whole agonizing, full-circle story of late-career quarterback economics.
Understanding Wilson's mindset in this exact high-pressure moment is absolutely key. Listen to this quote from him. "I still know I can play ball at a high level, but also I have an opportunity to do TV, so we'll see what happens." Picture him sitting in New York. Two phones are literally ringing on the table. One is the Jets, offering a very humbling backup role standing next to Geno Smith on a freezing sideline. The other phone is CBS, offering him a premium, highly coveted analyst chair right next to legendary coach Bill Cowher. He was being forced to choose between his deeply rooted pride on the gridiron and an incredibly lucrative, highly protected future in the broadcast booth. He wasn't just choosing a job for the fall. He was choosing between two entirely different versions of who he is.
And that incredible ultimatum sets off an unprecedented bidding war. The major NFL networks are now directly competing with NFL front offices for these aging superstars. When Matt Ryan left CBS to become the Falcons' president of football operations, it left a massive glaring vacuum at the broadcast desk for the NFL Today, right as it approached its massive 50th anniversary. Wilson was arguably the absolute biggest available analyst name on the entire market. I mean, he even guest analyzed while he was still an active player, essentially treating it as a live national audition. NFL trade rumors reported that the TV money would likely far exceed the Jets' backup offer. The broadcast side valued his football brain and his natural charisma far, far more than the NFL valued his aging throwing arm. This is a picture-perfect example of what we call the pivot. Russell Wilson didn't just surrender to the end of his career. He outsmarted the entire market. He literally ran the numbers. A lot of Jets-focused coverage genuinely thought he had to choose between retiring quietly to be with family or grinding through a brutal 15th season. Instead, he found the hidden door. He strategically traded a depreciating asset class, being an aging backup quarterback in a young man's league, for a highly appreciating asset class, becoming a marquee star TV analyst. By taking the CBS job, he preserved his body from taking hits from 300-pound defensive linemen every Sunday. He preserved his brand by staying on national television in millions of homes every single week. And he absolutely preserved his bank account. He leveled up right before the window closed forever. Case study 2. The heart. But here's the thing. Not every player makes their decisions with a calculator. Some players, they don't look at the math. They look at the scars, they look at the turf, and they realize in their soul that they simply cannot walk away. They are totally addicted to the fire of competition. We shift now from the calculating, pristine business of television to the gritty, deeply personal reality of a player choosing to fight for his football life. Let's trace the incredibly dramatic, turbulent journey of Odell Beckham Jr. back to where it all began. Drafted 12th overall by the Giants back in 2014, he was an absolute supernova. He made the iconic one-handed catches that literally defined a generation of football. But then came the trades, the brutal injuries. In 2022, he wins a Super Bowl with the Rams, catching a touchdown but tears his ACL in the exact same game. He fights all the way back, plays for the Ravens under head coach John Harbaugh in 2023, and has a very brief stint with the Dolphins in 2024, recording just 9 catches. Then came 2025. Suspended for 6 games for violating the PED policy. He sits out the entire 2025 season. He is sitting at home, totally away from the roar of the crowd. He admitted it was a time to reprioritize everything in his life. But that time away, it didn't extinguish his fire. It rebuilt a desperate, clawing hunger to get back on the field. Which brings us to 2026, a highly emotional return to New York. But make no mistake, this isn't some grand hero's welcome with a massive guaranteed signing bonus. Exposing the harsh truth of his return requires us to really look at the fine print. This is the minimum contract reality. Odell Beckham Jr., a global icon, a 3-time Pro Bowler, signed a veteran minimum deal. There were absolutely zero guarantees that he is even on the team when September rolls around. He is desperately fighting for a roster spot in a very crowded receiver room, trying to prove to the coaches that he still has his explosive speed, competing alongside guys like Braxton Berrios and Juju Smith-Schuster just to survive late August roster cuts. In fact, right before he signed, his former Baltimore coach, now Giants head coach John Harbaugh, gave him a very clear, very stark warning. Listen to the sheer heavy weight of these words. "I love you so much and have so much respect for you. I don't want to bring you here and have to cut you." That is the brutal reality of the NFL.
Harbaugh loves him, absolutely, but love doesn't secure a roster spot. The very real threat of an unceremonious, heartbreaking end, being cut before the season even starts, is staring Beckham right in the face every single day of camp. And Beckham's response to that warning? It captures exactly why we obsess over this sport. He said, "Listen, I'm going out on my sword either way it goes. If that's what you have to do when you see that I'm not at my best or not fit, then by all means, I'm good with it. I can't live with sitting at home not doing it." I mean, wow. That is a relentless refusal to quit. He knows the odds are stacked against him, but he would rather risk failing publicly on the practice field than fade away quietly on his couch at home. And this brilliantly illustrates his entirely new value to the franchise. He isn't just there to catch slant passes on third down. He is there for what is essentially the mentor's mission. Think about third-year receiver Malik Neighbors. Neighbors is trying to navigate the incredibly intense, totally suffocating pressure of the New York media, a media machine that Beckham knows better than anyone on earth. Neighbors is also dealing with the profound mental hurdles of coming back from a serious injury. Well, Beckham has the grueling experience of returning from multiple ACL tears. As Beckham said himself, he knows all the things to do, and he knows exactly the things not to do. He is actively leveraging his past controversies, his mistakes, and his immense physical pain, transforming it into vital wisdom for the next generation.
Two paths to a legacy. When we look at how these two parallel timelines converge, we find the ultimate narrative anchor for this entire explainer, the New York Giants. Two legendary players facing the exact same terrifying cliff edge of their careers. The relentless, crushing pressure of New York is the very crucible that pushed Russell Wilson away, ultimately forcing him out of the league and into a television studio. And it is the exact same magnetic force that pulled Odell Beckham Jr. right back into the fire, making him risk all his pride for one last desperate chance at glory.
I really want you to notice the profound psychological difference between these two choices. On one side, you have the calculator. Russell Wilson chose to protect and preserve his legacy from behind a pristine desk, leveling up to a multi-million-dollar network television contract where he will literally never take a blindside hit ever again. On the other side, you have the heart. Odell Beckham Jr., choosing to sweat and bleed on the practice field, taking minimum wage in NFL terms, risking the deep public humiliation of being cut in training camp, all just to feel the grass under his cleats and the stadium lights on his face one more time.
Which brings us to the ultimate question, a question that really cements the massive scale of this shifting NFL landscape we are witnessing. Did Russell Wilson brilliantly outsmart the league by cashing in on the broadcast booth before they could discard him on the waiver wire? Or did Odell Beckham Jr. show us the true, undeniable heart of a champion by flat-out refusing to lay down his sword? This specific era of NFL history, this fascinating transition from the old guard to the new, is far, far from over. Now, I want to know exactly what you think. Head down to the comments right now and tell me, are you taking the calculator's path or the heart's path? Which one would you choose? If you want more deep dives like this, hit subscribe to NFL Nexus. Absolutely like this explainer and seriously consider becoming a channel member today. Your membership is literally what makes these intense, detailed breakdowns possible. We'll see you on the next explainer where the story of the NFL never stops.